Jai Rastafari Jai. Prayam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopida Shama Kunda Radha Koti Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Abhidab Dham Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the Son of the devotees, all glories to the Son of the devotees, all glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to Shri Guru Shri Guru, all glories to Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristha Buddha Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvashesha Srinivani Pastatya Deshatadane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 47, verse 12 and 13. Just do 13. Don't do 12. Go backwards. Sakrit Adara Sudam Swam Mohinim Payatva. Sumanasa Eva Sajas Chacha Jaisman Bhavadrik Paricharati Katam Tat Padam Padmam Nu Padma Yapi Bata Fricheta Uttama Sloka Japai. Adhara, of the lips, Sudam, a nectar, Swam, his own, Mohinim, bewildering, Aya Yitva, make and drink, Sumanasa, flowers, Eva, like, Sadya, suddenly, Tatyaje, he abandoned, Asman, us, Bhavadrik, like you, Paricharati, serves, Katam, why, Tat, his, Pada Padmam, lotus feet, Nu, I wonder, Padma, Lakshmi, he api, indeed because, Bhakta, alas, Kruta, taken away, Cheta, her mind, he, certainly, Uttama Sloka of Krishna, Jalpai, by false speech. Translation: after making us drink the enchanting nectar of his lips only once, Krishna suddenly abandoned us, just as you might quickly abandon some flowers. How is it then that the goddess Padma willingly serves his lotus feet? Alas, the answer must certainly be that her mind has been stolen away by his deceitful words. Purport: in this verse, Srimathi Radharani continues to compare Sri Krishna to a bumblebee, and in her distress she states that the reason the goddess of fortune is constantly devoted to his lotus feet must be that she has been fooled by Krishna's promises. According to Sri Vishnu Chakravarti, this statement of Srimati Radharani illustrates Pari Jalpa as described in Sri Ujjvala Nilamani Prabhor Nidayata Satya Chapalyadi Upapadana Svavichakshanata Vyaktir Bhangyasat Pari Jalpitam. Pari Jalpa is that speech which, through various devices, shows one's own cleverness by exposing the mercilessness, duplicity, unreliability, and so on of one's Lord. So we skipped out one verse, 12, which is the first verse that Radha speaks. The gopi said, "O honeybee, O friend of a cheater, don't touch my feet with your whiskers, which are smeared with the kumkum that rubbed onto Krishna's garland when it was crushed by the breast of a rival lover. Let Krishna satisfy the women of Mathura. One who sends a messenger like you will certainly be ridiculed in the Yadu's assembly." Purport: Srimati Radharani indirectly chastised Krishna by chastising the bumblebee, which he took as his messenger. She addressed the bumblebee as Madhupa, one who drinks the nectar of flowers, and she addresses Krishna as Madhupati, the Lord of Madhu. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti points out that this and the following 9 verses exemplify 10 kinds of impulsive speech spoken by a lover. This verse illustrates the qualities of Prajalpa, as described by Rupa Goswami in the following verse from Ujjvala Nilamani. Ersha Madayuja Yova Dhyana Mudraya Priyas Akaushalodgara Prajalpa Satu Kirtyate. Prajalpa is speech that denigrates the tactfulness of one's lover with expressions of disrespect. It is spoken in a mood of envy, jealousy, and pride. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti points out that the word Kitava Bando expresses envy. The phrase from Sapatnya to Na, jealousy. The phrase Ma, Sprisha, angry, and pride. And the phrase from Vahatu to Prasadam, disrespect, while the phrase from Yadu Sadasi at the end of the verse decries Krishna's tactless treatment of Radharani. So these are the first two verses that Radha speaks to the bumblebee. Now previously, when all the gopis spoke, they also mentioned about how the bumblebee gives up the flower once it's tasted the nectar. So here Radha begins to speak to a bumblebee as the messenger of Krishna and also representing Krishna, and she begins to criticize Krishna exactly in the same way that the other gopis criticize the bumblebee for giving up the flower once it's tasted the nectar, among the different analogies that they gave. So, as is pointed out here, there are 10 verses, and each verse represents a different type of speech or a different type of criticism, we can say. These are also explained in Ujjvala Nilamani, where it describes the 10. And of course, there again, the same verses are quoted in the Ujjvala Nilamani, the ones from Bhagavatam. So the first one is Prajalpa, and the second one is Parijalpa. So they're all jalpas, upajalpa, etc. Jalpa, of course, means speech, a type of speech, but generally a little bit critical. Jalpa is not like kata, okay, Krishna kata. We don't call it Krishna jalpa. So it's a bit of a negative feeling to the word. It is more like wasted words or meaningless words or disrespectful words, etc., gossip, etc. So in that sense, the jalpa is sometimes used as well. And in the next verse we see, in verse 13 again, talks about Krishna's jalpa, that his various words were actually very deceptive because Lakshmi herself gets fooled by those words. So we have these different types of speech criticizing the lover. So these are part of this special type of prema. And we find that this is particularly displayed here by Radha, the highest of the gopis. So we should not criticize these expressions as being material at all, but they're part of a decoration or an ornament for prema itself, and of course prema in separation. So in addressing the bumblebee, immediately there is a use of some puns of some sort, because we have the word like madupa, which means one who drinks honey, madupa, so that means the bumblebee. Madupa could also mean a drunkard, one who drinks liquor. And we have Madhupati, Lord of the intoxication, as well as Lord of the Madhus, Madhu dynasty, the Madhava. He's called Madhava because he is Lord of the Madhu dynasty. Madhu was one of the ancestors of the Yadus, so therefore he's called Madhupati. But then he's the master of drunkards as well, or the masters of intoxicated people, or the master of deceitful people, or whatever. So the word is used to with a double meaning. So the bumblebee is the messenger of Krishna, but also represents Krishna. So often Radha will criticize the bumblebee, but it's actually a criticism of Krishna also, because they are similar in their natures. So in the first verse, she criticizes the bumblebee as being the friend of a deceptive person, a cheater, which is a very harsh criticism. But then she explains that actually the bumblebee has kumkum on the hairs on his body, and that kumkum comes from Krishna's garland, and the garland was, with his garland he embraced another woman in Mathura, so her kumkum got rubbed onto the garland, and then
the bee got to the garland, and then he ended up with the kumkum. So in this way, she's implicating Krishna in another love affair. So that's why she calls him a cheater. And the bumblebee is the friend of the cheater. So even though he's supposed to deliver a message to her, at the same time, the messenger cannot be trusted because he's simply the friend of the cheater. So this, of course, this accusation often comes from the gopis that now that Krishna is in Mathura, he is satisfied with the women there, so he's forgotten about the gopis. So that's a very common criticism when Krishna is gone. So that indicates a certain type of jealousy and a certain anger and envy, which is part of prema itself. So it's not material in any way. The first criticism is that Krishna is actually a cheater, and he has given up the gopis for the women of Mathura. So in that way he's a cheater because he did not fulfill his promise to them and stay with them. He went away and disappointed them. And then the present verse here, this verse, expresses how their disappointment, because Krishna gave them a great bliss, in fact the highest bliss, and then he left them. So immediately they felt very, very disappointed that after giving them such bliss and expecting that he would respond and this would be eternal, then suddenly he left and he abandoned them. So in this way they compare Krishna to the bee who goes to a flower and then drinks the nectar and then leaves. So Krishna has enjoyed the gopis and then he has left. He's got his enjoyment and then his nectar, and then he's gone off to enjoy other women, which was also explained previously, that the bee goes away from the flower, or the prostitute neglects a person with no money, etc. So again, another criticism that he is faithless and no one can trust him, that he's a great cheater. And added to this is the idea that he is such a cheater that even he can fool Lakshmi herself. She also becomes dedicated to him, but again, it is a cheating, because he will leave her also for someone else. And he simply used his words to fool her. So therefore, this is Uttama Sloka Jalpai. By his deceptive words, he's able to steal her heart. So these first two verses represent different types of speech. The first one, which is Prajalpa, and the second one is Parijalpa. So of course, Pari means, like we say, Parikrama. It goes around. It means around. Another it means completely, as in Parijaja. Completely give up all dharmas. Parijaja, not just jaja, but completely give up. Parijaja, completely. So here we have Parijalpa, which means we can say Jalpa, which in various displays, various types of devices, various types of words, to indicate cleverness on the part of the speaker. And through that it exposes Krishna's merciless nature, his duplicity, his unreliability, etc. So in other words, these words accuse Krishna through cleverness of the speaker. Even though Radha here criticizes Krishna for speaking jalpa, deceitful words, actually all of her words are also called jalpa. They are devices, in other words. So these are her particular words to show her cleverness in making accusations against Krishna. The duplicity is obvious by showing here how even Lakshmi is deceived by Krishna, and therefore he's unreliable. And he's also, of course, abandoned the gopis. So if he's abandoned the gopis, then he will also abandon Lakshmi. That's the assumption she makes. And based on that, then she criticizes him and say, therefore, he must be duplicitous in all cases. Of course, one can take the opposite argument and say, well, he abandoned the gopis because they weren't so qualified, so he's with Lakshmi, and Lakshmi is very qualified, so he won't abandon her. But that is not the logic of Radha here. He says that he's abandoned us, so he'll abandon everybody else. So therefore, how Lakshmi is bewildered by him is because he uses clever words. He uses his intellect and his words to persuade her, trick her, or whatever like that. So in this way, we have accusations of his duplicity and unreliability, etc., merciless nature, because of his various actions and speech. And the first verse was called Prajalpa. Which is also a common word. Prajalpa usually just refers to gossiping, material speech or whatever like that. And it's a rather negative term. So here it doesn't refer to that. It has a little bit of a negative context on the highest level of prema, because it's part of prema. So it is not worthless speech, but at the same time, it's critical speech by showing disrespect with the mood of envy, jealousy, and pride. And that's the Prabhupada pointed out how various phrases indicated the envy and the pride, etc. So both of these verses, of course, are criticisms of Krishna. And we'll see the other verses are also. For most people, of course, criticism is just criticism, but here we find that the criticism itself becomes very elaborate, and we have 10 types of criticism expressed in various ways in these 10 verses. And criticism is attached to prema itself on the highest level. Normally in the material world, we don't take very seriously when people simply talk and criticize others or whatever, because that is a sign of material qualities, material envy, etc. Here we have the topmost devotee, Radha, speaking. Even though it is criticism and she's speaking with envy and pride, etc., it's completely different. It's on another level. And therefore, the acharyas, they analyze these verses in detail and show the various aspects of prema in separation through these verses. As I mentioned, the bee is associated with Krishna. And of course, Madhupa can have many meanings, also negative meanings. And the same with the word Madhusudana, which is, of course, means the killer of the Madhu demon, so that refers to Krishna. But again, we have the word Madhu in there, and even the bee is sometimes called Madhusudana. Through the great emotion in separation, she projects upon that bumblebee qualities of Krishna in a negative way, and then through that begins to criticize him. And of course the bumblebee has various characteristics. One, of course, it goes to the flowers, etc., and takes the nectar and then goes away, because that's the primary characteristic that she's mentioned here. But then the bumblebee has pollen on it, the bumblebee is black, the bumblebee goes from flower to flower, the bumblebee buzzes, the bumblebee may disappear in the flower and go somewhere else and come back, etc. So all of these common characteristics of the bee are mentioned here, and they give rise to various emotions in Radha. She detects through these different actions of the bumblebee various aspects of Krishna's deceitful behavior and the bumblebee's deceitful behavior.
How then Prajalpa is material gossip. Then how come that Prajalpa word exists in the spiritual world?
Well, just as people do many things in the material world, we have a counterpart in the spiritual world. So people talk here, people talk there. People joke here, people joke there. People criticize here, people criticize there. So there's similarity in one sense, but also difference, because all of these activities in the spiritual world are related to a relationship with Krishna and rasa, primary rasa. In the material world, there's no Krishna, and the rasas are generally secondary rasas, and they're material. So that is the big difference. Well, in the spiritual world, generally, the positive aspect is they're always praising Krishna with kirtan. So glorifying Krishna is the most prevalent activity in the spiritual world. But here we have the negative thing, where we have the criticism of Krishna. In either case, they're speaking, but this is the negative aspect. But even the negative is positive, because it's an expression of their attraction to Krishna.
In material world, you find that people love to hear about praises. They don't like to be criticized.
Yeah.
They like to always be glorified and...
Well, actually, in the spiritual world, we see that, or in a spiritual level, Krishna likes the criticism. So he likes to hear the gopis criticize him, or we see after in Dwarka, when Rukmini is there. So he's trying to make her very jealous and disturbed and criticize her, but she won't do that. So the Lord also enjoys that response of the woman in separation or the woman in anger, etc.
Maharaj, question might come in that whom we love, how can I criticize that person? Whom we love, how can I criticize that person?
Well, this is actually on the highest level. Those in Dasarasa never criticize Krishna. And Asakya is very rare. But in Madhurya Rasa, then there is this criticism and whatever, part of man, pride. Man is one aspect, pride and anger. So that is a part of Madhurya Rasa particularly.
So this kind of criticism, can you say that it also increases the prema?
Well, yeah. Well, the whole man, which is pride and anger, actually is part of prema. It's just another taste within prema, and it increases the intensity or indicates the intensity as well.
We find many people, when they speak words which are not actually proper, they keep it in their mind for many years. They're not able to say, if we don't like somebody, and if he's telling something about me bad, and we keep it in our mind for many years.
Yeah. So, of course, this doesn't operate here, because in the spiritual relationships, everything is based on love. So therefore, these words, Krishna is not going to take them in a negative way, because it's simply an expression of their great prema, that's all. And they also will not take them in a negative way, because ultimately the basis of this is their great love for Krishna. So this is all like secondary elements.
So it means that when I like a person, Even if he criticizes me, I don't take the criticism proper. But if he doesn't like that person, and if he criticizes, I take it more opposite.
Well,
So depends
so
what
that's
relative.
actually because the only relationship in the spiritual world is with Supreme Lord, and it's a positive relationship, then the criticism is always secondary. It's not a major factor, and it disappears.
So Maharaja, in spiritual world, the gopis, in relation to Krishna, almost the way of criticism, all that is existing the same as in the material world, but only difference is Krishna is there. So how the spiritual world is existing, like do they live in the house, who's constructing, all those things? How do they live in spiritual world? Do they live in the house or?
Well, everything is spiritual, so it's not like material elements and material houses. And even with your mind or your thought or your wish, you can manifest anything you want. So it's quite different from material living and material conditions. Nevertheless, there are forms there are bodies there, people there, etc., and other things as well, all in service of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord.
Whatever gopis are telling about Krishna, it is truth only, correct? And how can you consider it as a criticism? It's truth only. Krishna's nature is like this. So how can you call it as a criticism?
Well,
It's a negative aspect, but it's truth.
yeah, in one sense. Obviously, we can say Krishna's a thief and Krishna's a cheater and whatever. But then, of course, the opposite is also there. He's not a thief, and he's not a liar. He's not whatever like that. So, opposites reside within the Supreme Lord. Yeah. But as I said, these aspects are not on the material level. So it is not material cheating, it's not a material thief, etc. It is all there within pastimes and within rasa that these things are manifested.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Brahma is one of the Mahajan, then how come he is coming under the laws of nature, means his lifetime is limited to 100 years. So how come he is coming under the laws of nature?
Who?
Brahma. Because he is the one of the Mahajan, right? No, yes, I read in one of the purport in Srimathi Radharani Prabhupada. Brahma is a Mahajan, so how?
He's a great devotee.
So how he is coming under the laws of nature, means his lifetime is limited to 100 years. So
Generally, Brahma has a material body,
okay.
so therefore it has a limitation. Of course, even great devotees may have material bodies, but they may not be subject to material laws because if they have prema, they're beyond the material world. But as long as they have a material body, then they have to give up that material body and take a spiritual body later on.
And one more question. What is the difference between Shruti Shastra and Smriti?
Shruti is eternal, it's not composed by anybody. Smritis are works written by Vyasadeva or other sages at a certain point in time. So they have a beginning. And of course we can say in that sense, temporary. The ideas are eternal, but the forms of the words are temporary. And in another yuga, another kalpa, Brahma, the words will be slightly different. But Shruti is always the same.